Doctors, are you celebrating your wins? Hi, everybody. Welcome to KC CHIROpulse Podcast, brought to you by CATS Consultants at Chiro Health USA. We are so happy to be here. We are your hosts. This is Dr. Troy Fox. I'm Dr. Michael Perusich. And welcome, Troy. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody listening out there, all you great subscribers and friends. I'll shut up now. Let's talk about the wins.
Yeah, and I think that's very important that we do. You and I were talking off camera about this a little bit, that the problem that we run into, because those of you that are consulting clients of ours and some of you that aren't, and even those of you that don't goal set, we tend to push as doctors because we're smart individuals. You're goal driven to make things happen for your patients. And I think in a lot of cases, we don't stop to enjoy our successes. We're on to the next goal, or as soon as we achieve something, we're like, okay, I want more. I want more, more, more. And when we do, we end up dissatisfied.
Yep. I can give you a great example of that too. This just popped into my head. The other day, I had a client send their statistics in, which is great because we like to analyze statistics every month for our clients. But in the email, the client said, I really wish I could have seen more new patients. I really wish my retention would have been better. And yet I'm looking through their stats and I'm seeing some of the best statistical improvements that they've had thus far. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of thinking the same thing you are. I'm kind of thinking, are you paying attention to the wins that you've got on paper here in the black and white? Or are you just always wishing for more? And there's nothing wrong with that. But, as an athlete, as a former athlete, it was always important for us to analyze our losses and celebrate our wins. Mm-hmm. Always, every time. And I think that's important in practice too.
And I think in a lot of cases, what it does is it keeps you as chiropractors, and we see this all the time too, from taking time for yourself. I think you're so locked in on your practice and you're so worried, if I take a day off, I'm going to lose numbers. If I take a day off, I'm going to lose patients. If I take a day off,
no, that drives me nuts.
The whole world's going to fall apart. And the truth of the matter is you got to take time. The funny thing was, like this last month, I took more time off than I normally do, just kind of willy-nilly little things here and there. And, Memorial Day holiday and all that stuff. And I'd taken more days off that month than I had in the last 4 months. And guess what? Our numbers were higher.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like going on vacation. What's a vacation do for you? It recharges you.
Yeah. And what it does while you're gone, your patients don't leave. It just compresses your numbers. You have to be more focused the days that you are in the office. Did we have some busy days? Oh, absolutely. We had one the other day where we got to lunch and I had 2 staff members in office with me that day. And we got to lunch and we all just looked at each other with eyes great big. And we went, wow. Okay, let's go to lunch. Let's regroup and get ready because this afternoon's just as busy. But it was one of those where we're all smiling. And we enjoyed that small success that we got through the morning. Now, that's not what I'm really talking about. But what I'm talking about is taking a day for yourself. As a golfer, I love taking a day for myself and shutting the office off. In other words, I'm not thinking about my numbers. The only number I'm thinking of is how far is it to the green when I take that. If you're not a golfer and maybe some of you docs like to shop or go fishing, or focus on what you're doing that day. Focus on the win and allow yourself to enjoy what you're doing, because what'll happen is it leads to the thing that none of us want: burnout.
Yep.
And we talked about this, you and I did, and spoke about it just a week or so ago. Yep. And we were talking to some of our docs that are in our mastermind group, and we talked about burnout and the result of that. I think it's directly tied into our ability to enjoy the wins and to savor the moment. Ferris Bueller once said, that makes me old, right? Anybody remember Ferris Bueller?
You could have just watched it last night for the first time.
I could have. And what Ferris Bueller says is sometimes you just got to stop and smell the roses, right? And it's a funny movie because Ferris, his whole life was kind of circled around trying to get out of stuff, like get out of school and stay home. And,
he worked the system.
He worked the system all the time. And it
Yep.
was funny to hear somebody like him say, well, sometimes you just got to stop and smell the roses. We
Yep.
all know people like that literally are the happiest people, but they work the system all the time just so they get that free time, they get that moment to themselves.
Yep.
And those of us as doctors in a lot of cases don't.
Yeah.
We grind it.
And we grind it too hard sometimes. So we got to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors, but we're talking about celebrating the wins and not always just focused on the I wish I could have. We'll be right back.
Affordable care shouldn't mean undervaluing yourself, but most chiropractors are still undercharging, especially when it comes to insurance allowances and cash patients with limited coverage. Chiro Health USA helps chiropractors charge appropriately, get paid well when insurance is available, and still serve patients with no or limited benefits, all through a compliant discount medical plan. The result? Doctors stop undercharging, raise fees, and increase income by about 20% without sacrificing care. That's not a discount strategy, it's a business strategy. Learn more at chirohealthusa.com.
Okay, doctors, welcome back to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. We are talking about celebrating the wins. And, I think this is incredibly important. Because if we don't celebrate the wins, then all we look at is the negativity in practice or the missed hits. And, how many times did Babe Ruth strike out? And yet he was one of the greatest home run hitters of all times. And yet every time you get up to the plate, you don't hit a home run every time.
Right.
It just doesn't happen that way. And so we have to remember that it's the opportunity to get up to the plate, to try to hit a home run. That's where it starts. We have to remember that we get the opportunity every single day to go into practice and use our hands to try to help heal people. And we see miracles every day. And yet we turn the camera around on ourselves and all we do is beat ourselves up. I didn't have enough new patients this month. Bill Smith dropped out. I don't know why. And we get so flustered with setting these brick walls up in front of ourselves that we just run smack into. I guarantee you send me your stats, I can find something positive in your practice. So we have to find the positive. And every time there's a win, and I promise you there are wins around you all day long, every single day, celebrate them.
And one easy way you can do that, and I'm going to tell you a story about David Katz, which is where the Katz Chiropractic Advisors and Katz
We
Consultants came from.
We've heard of him.
We've heard of this guy. Dave used to talk about, we're talking back in the day, right? Probably like 1990s early. That was back when we would write out our goals on a piece of paper or a dream board. We'd do all those things. And some people may still do that.
Napkin.
I write them down or a napkin. But what Dave would say is and here's how you set goals to achieve success and be able to enjoy the moment. You're going to set some big goals, right? But you also got to set some intermediate and some small goals. Give yourself some successes. And then when you do, now Dave's deal was a little different than maybe what we might do today because we have apps for everything and we have spreadsheets,
Right.
but Dave back in the day would say, take that page out of your little notebook that you wrote your goal and your action steps. And when you achieve it, you write the date you achieved it and you drop it in a shoebox. And then about once a quarter, you go in and you open that shoebox and you go through all your wins. And you
Yep.
get to sit back and remind yourself of how successful you've been that year. So we're not telling you don't set goals. We're telling you set big goals, medium goals, little goals. I really think that's still the best way for goal setting is because you've got to give yourself some small successes to make the big successes happen too. But it's good to go back and revisit them.
Yep.
And I want to add to this as well. Every day, like you said, going into practice, attitude of gratitude. I can walk into practice and say, who's going to quit care today? Who's going to be a pain in my behind today? Who's not going to like the adjustment that I gave him today? I can walk in with that attitude. Boy, that's a bunch of negatives all in one. Or I can walk in with the attitude of gratitude and say, you know what? What a wonderful day to be here. Look at all the loving patients that I have coming through the door today. It's going to be a wonderful day of taking care of patients and healing people.
Yep.
And that's a whole different attitude. So now if I have a negative in the day, it's one negative. I don't start out negative and hope that my schedule is going to turn it into a positive.
Yep. Every day, this got to be a joke after a while, but every day on our huddles, at the end of our huddle, somebody on our team would say, who are our favorite patients coming in today? And in unison, we would all say, all of them.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what we get to celebrate is the fact that we have people coming to us and uh, they're not looking for miracles, but they get miracles sometimes. And so we get to witness those miracles every day. And how often do you stop and actually celebrate that with the patient?
Hmm.
Celebrate the patient getting out of pain. Celebrate the 75-year-old woman who now can get back on the floor and play with her grandkids when she's babysitting them. Those are huge celebrations. And I think far too often we try to quantify our wins instead of looking at the qualified wins. Quantified quality. Yeah. I
Yeah.
had to think about that. We try to put numbers to it. My goal was 40 new patients this month, and I only hit 38. Seriously, that's a win. It's a win because you have 38 people walk into your practice looking to you for help. That's a win. So find the wins. And I'll be honest, I don't know how you get through practice as physical as our jobs are, as mental as our jobs are. I don't know how you get through practice without creating that positivity around those wins every day.
And show that you're human. Don't be afraid. I had a patient not too long ago that was a pretty complex case, and that patient made a miraculous change. It was chiropractic, it wasn't me. But
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, when that patient told me what had happened and how much better they were, I got goosebumps up and down my arm, and I showed the patient. I said, "Look at that." I just
Yeah,
got goosebumps when you told me that. I said, "If you don't think I love the wins that you patients achieve in my practice, that'll prove it to you. You can't
yeah,
make up goosebumps, right?" And so I'm very human with my patients. I'm also very human when a patient's disappointed with the progress that they've received, and I'll share in that disappointment with them because I want chiropractic to work phenomenally every single time. And we all know that sometimes it just isn't quite enough, or maybe we need to try a different technique, or maybe it's our technique. And,
or maybe the goal was too quantified, and we should have been looking at the qualified aspect of it.
absolutely.
It's hard to quantify returning somebody's quality of life. Did their quality of life change even a little bit because of chiropractic care? Probably. But,
Yeah.
if they come in at 8 out of 10 back pain and we only get them down to 7, the patient's looking at it as a loss. They make us think it's a loss, and it's
Mhm.
not. It's still a win. It just didn't get them all the way there. So I think we have to look at things differently.
We do for sure. And I mean, you can be disappointed, like I just said, I've been disappointed with that before, but at the
Sure.
same time, I will look at the positive. I'll be disappointed with them and then look at the positive and say, okay, here's where we are. But at that point, I'm also willing to own it and say, you know what? Maybe there's a better technique for this. Maybe I'm getting in my own way on this. Let's look at what else we can do with you. So I think it's a positive for a learning experience for the patient too. And I can't tell you how many times, and I know you guys as well, when you've done that, when you just aren't staunch about, okay, this technique I'm using or this adjustment I'm using has got to be the one, right? And sometimes I look at it and go, you know what? Maybe we should do some decompression on you. Maybe we should do a different type of therapy. What about some ultrasound today? I mean, something simple. I had a patient that literally wasn't improving, and we did a really simple thing, what I call old school therapies. I did ultrasound and stem on them that day. And
Yeah,
they
love
came
it.
back the next visit and went, "Oh my gosh." So there I got to
Stem's
celebrate
still my
that.
favorite.
Yeah, it is, me too. So sometimes it's the little things, and so I think we have to think on our feet, but I think if you're
Exactly.
positive about what you're doing and you're not just a defeatist attitude going, "Well, patient hates me, and I really don't think I did that much for him either," you're really gonna get bad outcomes when you do that. So
Yeah.
I think it affects your outcomes, it affects your attitude. So
Yep.
you've got to celebrate what's going on, and you've got to go into practice with that attitude every day of a winner. I'm gonna be a winner.
Absolutely.
Gracious for what I have, and I'm gonna be a winner today. And I know it sounds like, as we're talking about this today, like they're just talking about fluff. Some days they're in real serious conversation about things I need to do in my practice. You'd be surprised if you just look at your attitude how much of a difference it's going to make for you.
It's the little things that make the difference. It's not the big things. Put a mirror in front of your person that answers the phone all the time for new patient calls. Put a mirror in front of them and tell them, look at yourself. And if you're smiling, I promise you it's going to be a different phone call than if you're frowning.
Yeah.
It's just the little things. And, if we just put a smile on, if we just wake up every day and say, you know what, God, just give me the ability to see the wins today.
Yeah.
They're there. They're always there. And so I know a lot of docs right now, and there's a whole lot of reasons for it, I think, but I think a lot of docs right now are a little burnt out. Practice is getting a little bit harder. And I think that's why we're so busy at CATS Consultants, is because everybody's trying to figure out a new way to practice. And a little plug for us, we're very innovative, and doctors that are members of ours are doing great. But we've got to remember to turn on the smile. We've got to remember it's the little things that make the difference. And, finding those wins every day and celebrating them with yourself, with your staff, with your patients, with your family at home. Those things are important. How many of you go home and you're in a grumpy mood because you didn't have a great day? Somebody dropped out of care, or you had a patient that told you they weren't getting better and they were going to go to a physical therapist instead. That always feels good, right?
Yeah.
Do you go home in a bad mood? Is that what set the tone for the day? Or are you really digging in and watching for those wins? And we need to take another break, but I want to come back and just share a little thought on goals and goal setting and how to make it feel more win-like than sometimes it does. So, okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
Patient numbers dipping, staff overwhelmed, and another marketing idea promising the world but delivering nothing. These pressures feel familiar to nearly every chiropractic clinic today. Across the country, chiropractors work hard, yet many find themselves stuck, balancing patient care with the nonstop demands of running a business. That's where the real strain begins. Most clinics face the same set of hurdles: inconsistent new patient flow, operational bottlenecks, and the constant challenge of staying visible in an overcrowded digital space. National reports show that over 60% of clinics struggle with scheduling efficiency alone, and even more lack a clear marketing strategy that reliably converts. But the good news? These challenges aren't roadblocks, they're signals. With the right procedures, smarter outreach, and guidance built specifically for chiropractic practices, clinics can turn daily stress into sustainable growth. Stronger clinics start with smarter strategies. Grow your practice with confidence. Book your strategy session with CATS Consultants.
Okay, we are back. Troy, we're talking about celebrating the wins. And this is kind of a topic you brought up kind of off camera before we started recording. And I think it's huge.
Yeah. I got my party hat on right now. Can you see it?
I see that.
Yeah, I got my party hat on.
And I think one of the things that makes us sometimes feel like we're not getting wins is how we set goals. And
Tell
we
us, because
we took
you've looked at this really in depth. And so if this is your golden nugget for the day, boys and girls, probably right now. So tell me your thoughts on goals, because obviously it's morphed over the years for all of us, but what's your thoughts at this point?
I think far too many of us try to set goals that are too far out.
Mhm.
And when we set shorter term goals, when we compact, I'll give it away here. It's the 12-week year. If you haven't read the book, if you haven't gone through that process, it's an amazing transformation in how to do goals. And, I can remember sitting in a seminar one time. I've told this story before. You and Bridget are sitting in front of Joe and I,
Yeah.
and Dr. Katz is talking about goal setting.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. I think it was a year later, he asked us to pull out our goal sheets. And he's kind of going around the room. I may have raised my hand. And he calls me and says, okay, Michael, did you make your goals? What was your big goal? And I said, well, my big goal was this. I won't go into details, but my big goal was this. I wanted to get a new car. And he said, did you meet your goal? And I said, well, unfortunately, kind of no. And this is how easy it can be to miss the wins. Now, I didn't miss this one. I was joking when I did this, but I said, no. And he said, well, what happened? And I said, well, I had written down that I wanted a black car in this
Mhm.
particular make. I wanted a black Navigator. And he
Mhm.
said, so you did Navigator? I said, no, I got a white one instead. But you know, that easy sometimes a great number. I think we have to look at our wins and our goals differently. And the 12-week year helps you compact goals down into a shorter period of time where it's much easier to obtain. Because what happens is if we set a goal out for a year, for example, and sometimes I think 30 days is even too far. We set a goal, um, it's easy over time to say, we missed it this month by 10%, but we'll make up for it next month. And next month we miss it by 8%. Well, we'll make up for it over the next, and we keep pushing the ball down the road. And we've got to think in shorter time frames. And I think in shorter time frames, it's easier to see the wins. And I think that's why sporting events have a tendency to have a finite amount of time to them,
Mhm.
except for maybe baseball. Um, I've played some baseball games that had to go into another day to finish, but um, because somebody's got to celebrate that win here pretty soon. And when the buzzer goes off, when the whistle blows at the end of the game, what are your wins? And, even if you're the losing team, if we're talking about sports, you probably still had some wins. So we've got to really dig into those and find them, because I think the other side of not seeing the wins, I think that's where burnout lives.
I would agree a 1,000,000% on that because and I agree with you that the shorter time period, it creates some urgency.
It does.
It causes us to focus more on the goal. So that's what urgency does, is creates focus rather than having a whole year to get it done. It's no different than my kids in college right now. I'm like, "Hey, did you get that project done that you're supposed to do?" "No, it's not due for another 13 days." "Okay, when are you gonna do it?" Like, they're
Yeah.
gonna do it the night before, right? So we as humans tend to push things down the road. And so if you create urgency, you create focus. And if you create focus, you get better achievement results and so I think it's just genius that we shorten that time period up. Even let's say maybe it's a goal that there's no way it could be achieved in a month's time. Well, could you not set steps or break points within that goal that needs to be achieved in this amount of time? And you chunk that goal out to where you say, I need to achieve this in the next 30 days. I need
Yep.
this. We do that often with smaller goals. We'll set maybe a daily goal that we need to do because we have action steps that need to get done. On Tuesday, I need to go get the fencing materials to put up a new fence. On Wednesday, I need to go get posts or what. Yeah, I'm just making this stuff up, but you've got kind of a plan when you go out and you work on projects at your own home. And so you do have a chunking mentality when you do that, rather than just going and waiting until the hardware store or the lumberyard closes in 30 minutes and
Yeah,
you just now
exactly.
put your list together, right? So that's what we do with long-term goals is we often will wait till 30 minutes before the lumberyard closes and then start our list. And it's like, no, we need to chunk this thing out. So it doesn't mean that it always has to happen in 30 days. You may not have gotten a Lincoln Navigator white in color in 30 days, no matter how hard you tried. It may have taken chunking that out over a year's time, but you could have done it in pieces rather than just having one big overall goal and going, well, here's what I need to accomplish in the next year.
Mhm. Yep, exactly. So, docs, celebrate the wins, because if you look at too many losses, if you focus on the losses, again, I think that's where burnout lives. So, if you're dealing with some burnout, let's start looking at the wins, start celebrating the wins. If right now, if you need help with your practice, give us a call. That's what we do. We are probably one of the most innovative business coaching companies in the entire profession. So give us a call. We're not a cookie cutter system. It's all about the kind of practice you want to have. We're just there to be your board of directors and help you build the practice that works so you have the practice you want. If that makes sense.
I love how you said that. Help by being the board of directors. We advise you as a board of directors on the type of practice that you want. I love that. That's the most clear definition I've ever heard of what we do, because we don't come in and hand you a notebook that's got, a whole bunch of stuff, or a file that's got a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, learn our method.
Nope.
We
And
don't
we're not about making you see more patient visits. We're not about making you see more new patients. We don't believe that's how you build a practice. If you've been in practice 4 years or longer, you probably don't need to practice that way. We believe in working smarter, not harder.
100%.
All right, everybody. Troy, thanks for being here today. As always, on behalf of everybody here at Katz Consultants, we thank you for tuning in each and every week. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever that button is, and tell everybody about us. And I want to thank Chiro Health USA for also being one of our sponsors. So on behalf of Troy and I and everybody else, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.